Let me show you what people think of America outside the Anglosphere. I think it might have been a mistake for the United States to advertise itself as Israel's ally, because right now it might be the last straw on the back of the camel about America's reputation around the world.
Why is there any incentive for the Arabs to make any compromise in the peace talks? Why, if they know that they must only wait for the United States will do their bargaining for them?
White American, dude. American, we love you. Nothing to do with your skin color. Kamala Harris started referring to the Israeli government and the Israeli people as if they are different entities. Of course, the Israeli government was elected democratically by the people. And it's funny because this is the same rhetoric America likes to use when they actually declare a war on a state. This is what they did versus Iran. They said the Iranian government is not the Iranian people. This is how they talked about Germany. The German people is not the German government, and we know exactly what government I'm talking about. It's in the 40s, exactly, yeah. Am I surprised? Not really. I have a whole bunch of clips and receipts and sections in my long anti-Semitism video that shows America, the administration in the United States was never in favor of Israel and the aid and things like that. Every little thing I can talk about and explain it separately, but almost 100% of the times, except maybe when finally Trump came and moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, did America do anything because it really supported or was allied with Israel? Let me show you what people think of America outside the Anglosphere, all right? So Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, and then the US. So these are the only people who all happen to be English-speaking countries that the United States treats as equals. And if you'd notice, they're all island-like. They all have vast oceans surrounding them, seas, and it's part of the economic strategy of the United States. Formerly, it was the economic strategy of the United Kingdom of Britain. Now it moved to be the economic strategy of the United States after World War II. But basically controlling the seas, controlling the sea routes, by controlling the trade routes around the world. It controls the economy, but now Canada has fallen to progressiveness. Same United Kingdom fallen for Islamists. Australia has, I don't know if you saw what happened in the Sydney Opera House, but New Zealand is also super progressive and also, you know, who else speaks English? South Africa, no, they're Dutch, it doesn't count. Anyway, those are the United States' natural allies. And even those, the United States was more than willing to dump the moment it was not comfortable. Like it was super ready to dump the UK against Germany in the 40s. After that, the United States has its second-tier allies, which is basically Western Europe, and maybe Taiwan, Korea, South Korea, Japan, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe they're somewhere between second tier and third tier. Now, on third tier, you'd have democracies that are in the border. So India, that has a border with countries like China, and Ukraine, that has a border with Russia, and then Israel, that has a border with the Arab world. So those are third-tier allies. Those countries that America definitely doesn't look as, like they're not equals. Unlike second-tier allies, where America is like, well, you're not English-speaking, but we kind of respect your culture and things like that. Then the third-rate allies which is us, India, Ukraine. It's like, we need you, but we want you to be puppets because you're just like, comfortable in the border. And then you have fourth tier allies, which would be Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran kind of was like that. All kind of those countries where the United States uses as allies, but would abandon really fast, and they're not perceived as allies by the general public. What sets Israel apart from Ukraine and India, and by the way, countries like South Sudan, I think South Sudan is like somewhere between third and fourth, like places people don't even think or hear about, places in Africa, that Israel also has a religious significance for the Christians in the United States and for the Jews in the United States, but mostly the Christians in the United States. Therefore, it puts it in kind of a special situation where you have a lot of push from the people of the United States that believe that Israel should be strong and exist, but the administration in the US doesn't look at it as a legit entity per se. It looks at it more as something to use, as a tool, because we're not European enough for them. Yeah, I just remember there is also Latin America, but I think within Latin America, it's like, those are your neighbors. Is the border secure? Do you have any rockets that are aiming towards the US inside Latin America? Are there like drugs coming from there? Like, it's more on a practical basis. So with Latin America, I'd say that the treatment is towards practicality. So how does this third tier friendship look like? I'm pretty sure Taiwan would be there too. I'm not. For example, when Ukraine was invaded, when Russia took Crimea, the obvious thing to do would be starting to get, weaponized. So you could be ready to fight the inventable, like, Russian invasion, right? Or at least just have a deterrent, something that will be, hey, it's not going to be worth it, Russia. Let's not go there. Okay, let's stop at Crimea. Could be an option. A lot of times, having weapons is good enough to stop a war. But of course, Ukraine could not get weapons because it was under no-sell area. There is nobody would sell weapons to Ukraine. So Ukraine found itself in a situation where it's very corrupt, to be honest, to begin with, and they have no way to prepare for war. So the moment they started war, this is when the world was like, oh no, Russia might reach Europe if they go through Ukraine. And it's the biggest country in Europe. If you take Russia away, Ukraine is the biggest country in Europe. And what happens if Russia started going into Ukraine? Oh my God. It might attack other places in Europe because it can. It has they produce weapons. They have everything they need to feed themselves. They have so much land. Did you really think that you can cut off Russia and Russia would suffer the consequences? No, it suffers the consequences of them not managing themselves properly. But technically, they have everything they need. They have all the resources in the world, metals, diamonds, everything they need to be able to sustain themselves completely independent from the rest of the world and to produce weapons to fight in Ukraine. They also have a pretty open border policy. I think a lot of people don't know, but Russia is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, immigrant receiving country. For sure, before the Ukrainian war, it was. A lot of people from all of Central Asia and China moved to Russia. There are areas in Russia, in the east, where you have Russian and Chinese. And also they have the exact opposite problem where Russia has too much women and Chinese has too much men. They have a very similar, I know it's funny because their cultures seem so different, but in reality they have a very similar psychology and ways of thinking, the Chinese and the Russians. So I think they could basically get along. They're the same kind of mentality, the same kind of thinking, So they work great with each other, except they might clash on who is controlling. So yeah, they're self-sufficient. So wow, is it a surprise that now Europe is under threat? Of course not, but you know, America loves this "it ain't my problem until it is my problem" kind of approach. Like the reason we had weapons in the independence war is because Russia, the Soviet Union, was the one that actually gave us weapons. They were the only ones who supplied weapons through Czechoslovakia. But the United States, that was supporting us after our catastrophe, had an embargo put on Israel and the Middle East, because the heck they cared if we survived or not. We don't really matter in this great scheme. And everybody knows that. Israel didn't do enough to secure its independence from the US for the day that it would finally ditch it. The writing was on the wall. There is no ally that the United States does not ditch when it's not comfortable to be allied with them. Even the UK. Yeah, so now that the United States is also in the process of falling, may November save us all, to progressive lunatics, of course it will ditch Israel, and it would... The spectacular thing is that it did it till now. It just screwed us behind the scenes, you know. It's like, really didn't like Israel being independent and tried everything and anything it could do in its power to turn us to a puppet government, puppet country. Now they actually do it out loud and proud. That's amazing. But thank you for showing the world who you are. Think, China looks at it, Russia looks at it, and it knows. It knows that the world sees how United States treat its third-tier partners, which are it views as less than, because they're not Western European and they're not Anglo-Saxons. And it's like, here, come to me, babies, come to me, India. This is what's happening right now between India and Russia, because India doesn't trust the United States at all. So it's like, you know what? I know for 100% sure that the United States will ditch India the moment it's, you know, when it looks like they attack in Pakistan and it doesn't look pretty, the photos are ugly, so the United States be like, F India, we don't need them, it's bad PR, and that's it. And Russia, China, like, Russians, let's be honest, okay? You think they care about, like, they're not Westerns, okay? They don't see, like, what's happening in Gaza and their heart melts. It's like, not your average typical Russian reaction. And what's funny is, like, and I can agree with that, is one of the things that drive Putin crazy is that maybe Russia is, you know, wants to be a superpower and things like that, but then the whole world knows who they are, and they know that they have no ethics or morals, and they don't pretend to have them. And then if they say they're going to stand by your side, they're going to be there for you. Russia is more trustworthy than the United States. What do you think it does to the countries that don't know what to do? Who do you play with? Those who have no regard to human rights, or those who have no regard to their allies? That's a very weird position to be in. And I think the United States, I don't know if it understands how the world, Saudi Arabia, Qatar was ready to be allied with Israel and the United States first, and it saw that the United States didn't support Israel in its previous Gaza war, so it was like, you know what, we cannot be friends with the United States because it will ditch us the first moment it's uncomfortable, and we cannot trust and see how they pressure Israelis. And since they can pressure the Israelis, we know that the Israelis will not be able to protect us because the United States won't let them fight Iran properly. So they went to Iran with all their money, and now they're screwing up the whole world. Yay! Yay, America. Good job, America. Woohoo! You cannot act like that. There are consequences. Like, comment, subscribe. Give me money. Let's try to keep free speech going as long as possible, because there are a lot of forces in the world that fight against it.